Hi, welcome to Story Sessions with Mr. Ling. We read and briefly discuss about great children books here on the channel. Subscribe and stay tuned for more videos like this. Today, we're reading this book titled Charles Darwin from the Genius series. The Life of Charles Darwin, written by Jane Kent, illustrations by Isabel Munoz, and designed by Nick Eklund. I am Charles Darwin, the biologist who introduced people to the theory of evolution and the process of natural selection. At the time, it was a highly controversial idea, and one that many strongly disagreed with. Sail around the world with me on a voyage filled with adventure and an extraordinary new discovery that would forever alter the way we look at the world. I was born on 12th February 1809 in the tiny English town of Shrewsbury. My father was a doctor called Robert, and my mother, Susanna, was from the famous Wedgwood pottery family. They had 6 children. I was the second youngest and raised us as Christians. When I was 8, my mother died, and so my older sisters took care of me. My grandfather, the renowned botanist Dr. Erasmus Darwin, was a free-thinking physician from 1794 to 1796. He wrote Zoonomia, which put forward a radical and extremely contentious idea that one species could transmute into another. I started at Edinburgh University in October 1825 when I was 16. My father wanted me to become a doctor like him, and so I studied medicine. However, I wasn't the best student because I felt sick at the sight of blood. I spent a lot of time discussing marine life with Robert Grant, a qualified doctor who had given up medicine in favor of marine biology, and I was elected a member of the Plinian Society 28 November 1826. It was a university club for students interested in natural history, where I met many radical freethinkers. In October 1827, I enrolled at Christ College, Cambridge, and began my studies there the following January. As medicine clearly wasn't the right path for me, my father suggested I study to become a clergyman instead. My preferred subjects remained biology and natural history. Botany professor John Henslow became my mentor, and I spent a lot of time out walking and collecting beetles. I finally graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1831. Before I could find a job as a clergyman, I was given the opportunity of a lifetime. Henslow had recommended me for a naturalist position aboard a brig called the HMS Beagle. It was to be a 5-year voyage around the world, to survey the coasts around the southern tip of South America. Under Captain Robert Fitzroy, we set sail from Plymouth Harbor on 27th December 1831 when I was 22. I was excited, although I did suffer with terrible seasickness. I ensured I was well equipped before I set off, having sought advice on preserving carcasses from experts at London Zoo. We visited 4 continents in 5 years, and I spent as much time on land as possible, leaving the ship for extended periods to observing nature. It was a unique opportunity to closely observe the principles of botany, geology, and zoology. I did a lot of hands-on research and experimentation in order to collect plant and fossil specimens and investigate the local geology. In Brazil, I explored a rainforest. In Argentina, I discovered many fossils. On the island of Chiloé, I witnessed the volcanic eruption of Mount Osomo. Journal after journal was filled with meticulous field notes. which I then sent back home. When we left South America behind, we stopped 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador at the Galapagos Islands. Over 5 weeks, I spent time on 4 of the small volcanic islands: San Cristobal, Floriana, Isabela, and Santiago. I discovered that although each island had similar flora and fauna, they were perfectly adapted to their different environments. We landed back in England on 2nd October 1836. My head was filled with all of the extraordinary things I had seen and experienced, so I immediately started to write up my findings. The trip had had a monumental effect on me. My view of natural history had been altered, and the seeds of a revolutionary new theory began to grow. Having seen that animals most suited to their environment survived longer and had more young, while those that failed to adapt and reproduce died off, I now believe that evolution occurred by a process that I called natural selection. It was an idea I kept to myself for many years. I was made a Fellow of the Geological Society in January 1837, presenting 4 papers on some of my findings aboard the Beagle, and becoming secretary in 1838. That same year, on the 11th of November, I proposed to Emma Wedgwood. Happily, she accepted, and we married on 29th January 1839. We went on to have 10 children, 6 boys and 4 girls. At the time of my marriage, I was still struggling to go public with my new theory, because it went against my Christian beliefs and because of how my grandfather had been treated when he voiced his transmutation idea. So I shut my notebooks and instead published my travel diary, journal of researches into the geology and natural history of the various countries visited by HMS Beagle in 1839. My belief in Christianity was shattered when my eldest daughter, Annie, died in 1851 at the age of 10. I never truly recovered from the loss and often became sick myself, suffering long periods of nausea throughout the rest of my life. The cause of my illness has never been confirmed. Some say I contracted a tropical disease on my travels, while others believe it was all in my head and that stressful events triggered it. While still working on and expanding my theory, I published several books on coral reefs and South American geology. These works secured my reputation as a geologist, and in 1853, I won the Royal Society's Royal Medal for my detailed study of barnacles. The following year, I was elected to the Royal Society's Philosophical Club. By June 1858, I had written many thousands of words on evolution and natural selection, but they had been read by no one other than myself. I was given the push I needed to go public with my theory when I received a letter from Alfred Russel Wallace. He had long been an admirer of mine, and my voyage on the Beagle had inspired him to go traveling himself. He then came up with his own theory of natural selection and had written to ask my advice on publishing it. If I didn't act quickly, Wallace would be credited with my ideas. Wallace was abroad and could not be contacted, so I alone had to decide how to proceed. I wanted to ensure that I got credit for my ideas, while also acknowledging Wallace. So, on 1st of July 1858, my theory was publicly revealed at a meeting of the Linnean Society, Britain's leading group on natural history. I had to miss the meeting because my youngest son, Charles, had died of scarlet fever aged just 18 months. So instead, my friends Charles Lyell and Joseph Hooker read out a letter that I had prepared. They also presented extracts from both mine and Wallace's papers, which Wallace later agreed had been fair. I then wrote and published a detailed explanation of my theory in November 1859. The book was called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. One key finding I hinted at was that human beings were descended from apes. I dreaded losing my reputation, as my grandfather had, and although many people were shocked by my ideas, many others were willing to listen to me. My theory of evolution and the process of natural selection later became known as Darwinism, and my book is now considered one of the most important ever written, going into multiple editions and selling worldwide. After the publication of my book, any debate about evolution drew huge crowds. I was reluctant to attend, even to defend my ideas. However, a young biologist called Thomas Huxley was not afraid to take up what many viewed as the fight between science and God. At a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science in 1860, Huxley pitched my idea of evolution against Bishop Samuel Wilberforce's biblical account of creation. With both sides claiming to be right, it was a clash that would go down in history. On 30th November 1864, I was awarded the Copley Medal by the Royal Society. It was the oldest and most prestigious award, given annually for outstanding achievements in scientific research. By this time, I was falling ill for longer and longer periods. Eventually, my heart failed and I died at my family home on 19th April 1882. I was buried at Westminster's Abbey, and my funeral was attended by many key figures in science. 5 years after my passing, in 1887, the autobiography that I had begun writing in 1876 for the amusement of my grandchildren was published. And the following century, DNA studies would finally provide scientific evidence for my theory of evolution. I hope my story inspires you to have faith in your own ideas and be brave enough to express them. Don't be afraid to challenge conventions, because that's how new ground is broken and important changes are made. There will always be people who disagree with you and others who support you. But the key thing is to have courage and believe in yourself. The end. So what you're seeing right now is a timeline from 1809, the year that Darwin was born, up until 1887, where Darwin's autobiography was published. I appreciate very much that you stay until the end with me in today's session. Before you go, do click on the like and subscribe button and share this video with your friends. See you soon. Bye-bye.